Good afternoon. Welcome back to another episode of the Lord of the Rings LCG Progression Series. And today will be lore and quest guide for the Battle of Lake Town. Then warning trumpets were suddenly sounded and echoed along the rocky shores. The cheering stopped and the joy was quickly turned to dread. So it was that the dragon did not find them quite unprepared. So this quest covers the attack from Smaug on the people of Lake Town. Lake Town being located here on the map. This quest thematically would fall roughly after the Lonely Mountain quest in the On the Doorstep Hobbit Saga box, which hadn't been released yet when the Battle of Lake Town was released, so it's not exactly accurate. Suppose they could have waited until after the On the Doorstep Saga box, but they wanted to release it at Gen Con in 2012, so it was released after the first Hobbit Saga box, but thematically it falls toward the end of the second Hobbit Saga box. This was a point in the Hobbit story in which Smaug attacked Lake Town in retaliation for the dwarves and Bilbo invading his domain, the Lonely Mountain, Erebor, where he'd been sleeping for a long time and where he had all his treasure. The dwarves and Bilbo went in not knowing for sure whether he was alive or not. They were looking to reclaim Erebor. And he was alive, and he got very mad that they were there and went and attacked Lake Town, as he blamed the people of Lake Town for Bilbo's presence in the Lonely Mountain. So, let's talk about the quest. Every vessel in the town was filled with water, every warrior was armed, before the roar of Smaug's terrible approach grew loud, and the lake rippled, red as fire, beneath the awful beating of his wings. Roaring, he swept back over the town. A hail of dark arrows leaped up and snapped and rattled on his scales and jewels, and their shafts fell back, kindled by his breath, burning and hissing into the lake. So, this is a very unique quest, very interesting quest. For the setup, you have a Smaug deck, 9 cards, 3 copies of 3 different versions of Smaug. Smaug the Mighty, Smaug the Magnificent, and Smaug the Terrible. This quest is not well explained without additional information. If you just looked at these encounter cards, you would not immediately know what to do with this quest. For the setup, you reveal 1 card from the encounter deck per player. You have Lake Town in the staging area. This is really just a marker for how much damage is on Lake Town. That's the reason it's there. Once the setup is done, at the beginning of the quest phase each round, you reveal 1 card from the Smaug deck, and you can choose, before you reveal it, whether you are going to put this copy of Smaug that will come off the Smaug deck in the staging area or engaged with you. Early in the game, you're likely going to choose the staging area for him because you don't want to take an attack very early in the game. You might not even be able to without losing a hero. So let's say we chose in this case to put Smaug in the staging area, and out comes 1 copy of Smaug. Again, in the Smaug deck there are 3 copies of 3 different versions of Smaug, 9 cards in total. Smaug the Mighty is the worst of them, because when he is revealed he makes an immediate attack against each player. So, revealing Smaug the Mighty on turn 1 at the beginning of the quest phase can mean a loss if you haven't got a chump blocker or a way to tank 5 damage. If you're not prepared for it, if you've used all your heroes to quest or something like that, or you just played an ally, that ally will die, or you're going to have to tank an attack for 5, which some heroes can do, but not a lot at this point in the game. And it's risky because, for example, if you get the wrong shadow card, you can just lose. And some of the shadow cards are pretty horrifying. You can get one that deals 1 damage to each character in play. Resolve all burn damage isn't that bad. Attacking enemy gets +2. So let's say you were playing an Elrond Villia deck for this one. And then it also makes an additional attack after this one. If you get that card on Smaug the Mighty turn 1, you just die, right? Because an attack for 7 will kill whatever ally you manage to play, if you manage to play any at all, and one of your heroes. So Smaug the Mighty, definitely the worst one to get turn 1, and really early in the game at all, it's bad to get him. I think on the victory that I had on this quest, I didn't get any of the Smaug the Mighties until the back end of this Smaug deck. Let's go over the other Smaug cards. So once again, at the end of the round, not at the end of the round, sorry, at the beginning of the next quest phase, you discard the copy of Smaug that is in the staging area or engaged with you, and you bring out, he goes to a special discard pile because you're going to reshuffle it when you get to the end of the Smaug deck. But he doesn't get shuffled back into the deck right away, he gets discarded. Then you bring out the new Smaug. This one is Smaug the Terrible, and it resolves all burn damage from all locations in play. Burn damage means you're going to be adding burn tokens to Lake Town. And if you get to 50 damage on Lake Town, you lose. There are 2 tasks in this quest. One is defeating Smaug, and one is healing Lake Town, because you cannot have more than a certain number of tokens, damage tokens on Lake Town when you complete the game, when you beat Smaug. Or you will have defeated him, but it'll be a Pyrrhic victory because Lake Town is burning. But first we'll talk about the different copies of Smaug. One at the beginning of each quest phase. Now, very important, when you rotate out the old Smaug, any damage that he has on him, or had on him from the previous round, will stay on him. So let's say he had 10 damage on him. When you bring out a new copy of Smaug at the beginning of the quest phase, and the old one's discarded, you transfer the damage over, and then you continue on. So you don't have to do all the damage all in one turn. Let's talk about the different versions. Smaug the Mighty we've covered. He's horrifying. He's the one you least want to see. Smaug the Terrible resolves all burn damage, which cannot be a big deal at all. In fact, I don't think I've ever thought this was a big deal, at least in true solo play. I'm pretty much always happy to see that one. And he attacks for 7, and he has 7 shields. Smaug the Magnificent. Excess damage from attacks by Smaug the Magnificent must be assigned to Lake Town. And one important note about Smaug the Magnificent, he does have threat of only 30. That can be quite bad, because he doesn't have Smaug the Mighty's immediate attack, but 30 is a relatively low number, and it can mean that you have to tank an attack from him. Excess damage from attacks by Smaug the Magnificent must be assigned to Lake Town, which I don't find to be that big a deal. When revealed, you move 3 damage from Smaug the Magnificent to Lake Town, so he heals himself for 3 when he comes into play, and damages Lake Town a little bit. But again, in my playthroughs, I haven't found damage on Lake Town to be that much of an issue. The bigger issue with Smaug the Magnificent is his relatively low threat and 8 attack. So, this is going to happen with a new Smaug coming out of the deck every single turn, no matter what phase you are in. In phase 1, Smaug cannot have more than 6 damage on him. So this incentivizes proceeding through phase 1. But you don't have to proceed at a quick rate. You can focus on stabilizing, although there are no enemies in this encounter deck apart from Smaug, so you don't have to worry about attacks from enemies. All the encounter cards are locations or horrifying treacheries. When revealed, you deal 1 damage to Lake Town for each player in the game. That does not matter. when you advance to phase 2, Smog cannot have more than 12 damage on him. When the players quest successfully, any number of progress tokens that would be placed on this quest may instead be discarded to remove the same amount of damage from Lake Town. This is why I haven't felt like damage on Lake Town was a big concern, because you can really heal a lot from Lake Town rapidly if you're playing a deck that's high in willpower. So whatever damage you put on Lake Town up to this point can be healed in phase 2. Once you do proceed through phase 2, in phase 3, during the quest phase, you will reveal one additional card from the encounter deck. Reset the quest deck to stage, or refresh action, reset the quest deck to stage 2B. So this is a gimmick of this quest. You have to go into phase 3 in order to defeat Smog. No matter which version of him, they all have 20 hit points. But he can't take more than 12 damage while you're in phase 2. So the strategy then, because you can only stay in phase 3 for one round, and then in the refresh phase, you have to reset back to stage 2. So what's going to happen, the strategy to defeat this quest is, you heal up Lake Town in stage 2, you get 12 damage on Smog, which means you have to either optionally engage him or put him into play in the staging area. Putting him into play in the staging area, if you can handle the attack, is also very helpful in healing Lake Town. Once you have put 12 damage on Smog, either by optionally engaging him or by having him engage in the engagement check stage, if he's Smog the Magnificent most likely, or sometimes Smog the Terrible. But in any case, once you've got 12 damage on him, then you need to, and also have healed up Lake Town, then you need to advance into stage 3, and in the turn that you advance to stage 3, you have to deal the remaining damage on Smog in the same round that you enter into phase 3, which means making whatever progress is remaining on stage 2 and defeating Smog in the same round. So if you haven't quested very precisely and you have, let's say, 0 progress on phase 2, then you have to commit characters to quest, which you could not then use to help you attack Smog, which can be a big deal if you still need if you need 8 damage on Smog still, which you will, but you're relatively low on attack power and you've been kind of damaging him a little by little over the turns. Damaging him all 8 remaining hit points in one turn while questing for 10 can be a big deal. Considering he has 9 shields, that could mean attacking for 21 or 7 shields or 8 shields, but it could mean attacking that you need to attack for 21 and quest for 10 in one round, which at this stage in the game is not an easy task. That is the task, and there is no point to advancing to phase 3 without the ability to do the final 8 damage all at once, because if you fail, you will have simply revealed 2 encounter cards instead of 1, and you'll be back to the start of phase 2. So ideally, if you can quest precisely, you want to get up to like 7 or 8 progress on Fire and Water, and 12 damage on Smog, then advance to stage 3 by questing past 10 progress. Hopefully you only need 3 or 4 to advance. Advance to stage 3. Deal the 8 damage to Smog. And you will win if you have more victory points in the victory display than damage tokens on Lake Town. And you gain victory points in the victory display by exploring Lake Town locations. Thematically, this represents putting out fires in Lake Town and protecting property. So, in my experience, the locations thing kind of happens naturally as you clear them out of the staging area. You just don't want their threat hanging around because Smog already has a lot of threat. So you just clear out the locations. You're typically gonna, some of them have quite a lot of victory points, so As long as you take a turn or two to heal in Phase 2, heal Lake Town by questing without placing any progress on Fire and Water. And by the way, that also allows you to quest very precisely, because you can get up to like 8 progress on the quest and then just cancel future progress if you're not ready to advance yet and use it to keep Lake Town healed. So yeah, keep in mind that on the turn that you enter into Phase 3, you need to have enough locations in the staging area that you have more victory points than you do damage on Lake Town. So let's say you get into Phase 3 and you've only cleared one location somehow. I mean, it could happen, I guess. And Lake Town has 5 damage points, well, you only have 4 points in the victory display, and so you would lose even if you defeat Smog. So you need at least a few locations in the victory display, sufficient that you have some breathing room in case you bring out more burn tokens on Lake Town during the questing phase, or due to Smog the Magnificent attacking or something like that. Also, a minor point, if you're planning on bringing out Smog and you've got 12 tokens on him from the last round and Smog the Magnificent comes, it can be a bit annoying because he's going to heal for 3, which means you need an extra 3 attack. But in any case, 3 conditions need to be met in Stage 2. Number 1, heal Lake Town as much as possible. Number 2, get 12 damage on Smog. Number 3, get enough locations in the victory display that you can cover the requirement that you need more victory points than damage on Lake Town at the end. It's not an easy quest. We'll go over the mechanics of the encounter deck now. The burn keyword. When you see burn on a card, when you are instructed to, such as by Smog the Terrible, resolve all burn damage from all locations in play, you add up all the burn keywords on all the cards and assign that damage to Lake Town. If you want to, you can instead exhaust any ready characters and assign some of the burn damage to them. But any damage not assigned to your characters must be assigned to Lake Town. So that can be a big deal with some locations, or if you let locations stack up in the staging area. But generally I've not found it to be an issue to heal up Lake Town in Phase 2 if you're playing a relatively high willpower deck. There are a variety of shadow cards which are quite a big deal, and treacheries. When revealed, Smog makes an attack against Lake Town. You can declare a defender against this attack. Haven't found that one to be a particularly big deal. When revealed, deal 1 damage to each character in play. That can be a very big deal. The shadow effect also, deal 1 damage to each character in play. Or you can discard a hero to cancel this effect. I wouldn't do that in solo play. Choose and shuffle 1 peer location from the victory display back into the encounter deck, so a fire you put out is restarted. There's some other nasty ones. Resolve all burn damage from all locations in play. That one's not too big a deal. The Old Thrush, I've never actually seen this come into play, but it can be useful to helping you defeat Smog. After attached hero exhaust to attack Smog, discard X card from hand to reduce Smog's shields by X. Can be helpful. It's not that good though. Usually you don't have that many cards that aren't useful in your hand. If Smog is in play, he gets +2/+2, -2, and gains the text allies cannot be declared as defenders. That's a pretty big deal. If it happens at the wrong time, it could mean an undefended attack with Smog doing like 10 or 9 or 7 damage. Each player must choose and discard 1 ally he controls if able. Deal 2 damage to Lake Town for each player that cannot. And it's annoying. Stops you from building up a board too quickly. And there's 1 location That's a pretty big deal. The Master's Manor, if it comes out at the wrong time, move all damage from Smog to Lake Town. So if you're trying to get set up in phase 2 with 12 damage on Smog, and this is one of the encounter card that's revealed, then it just destroys your plans. But it's a unique location. It's a 4 threat, 8 quest point to clear location with burn 3. That one's a pretty big deal. Most of the others aren't really that bad. They're more of a minor inconvenience. The main challenge of this quest is surviving Smog attacks, surviving in the event that he gets a double attack from close to the flame. No, it's not close to the flame. Which one is it? Well, there's more than one that can cause Smog to attack more than once. Dire Magnificence. If this attack destroys a character, Smog engages the next player and makes an immediate attack. Not going to do anything in solo play since there is no next player, but it will mean an extra attack in multiplayer. And then the Esgaroth Wharf can mean an extra attack and +2 attack. So that can be a pretty big deal at the wrong time. Strategy for this quest. If you're struggling with this one, I used a Elrond Vilya deck if I'm playing progression style. I'm not sure there are that many other viable decks. This encounter deck doesn't throw any enemies at you other than Smog, which does give you some time to set up, and that's what Elrond Vilya needs. And there probably is another viable deck against this quest, but that was the one that made sense to me, and that was the one that defeated the quest. And though I think in my video I did miss an attack, but I don't think it would have mattered. In any case, that's my recommendation, is go with an Elrond Vilya deck. Net deck it if you have to. This is one of those quests where only a very limited number of decks have a good chance against it. Which, it's not my favorite when you are kind of forced into playing one deck to beat a quest, but in true solo in Lord of the Rings LCG, that's pretty often the case. Not pretty often, but often enough. Too often, let's say. There's probably a small handful, half a dozen or so, at least, that require you to play like one of 2 decks or one of 1 decks in order to beat it, because they're that difficult. And if you're playing this quest in progression style, I would consider it one of those quests, so my recommendation, if you're struggling with this one, is to play an Elrond Vilya deck. Play an Elrond Vilya deck, get set up in phase 2, heal Lake Town, get some locations, get 12 damage on Smog, and then advance and finish him in 1 round. That is the strategy. Not an easy quest, but it's a fun quest. I like it a lot. It's very unique. There was never again, at least nothing else I can remember was ever, no other quest was like this again. So I'm a fan of this one. I like it. Thanks for watching.